HOA installed illegal speed bumps, but I'm head of roadway safety. The first time I saw the speed bumps, I nearly threw out my back, and I wasn't even driving. I was walking my 8-year-old daughter, Lacey, home from school. She was humming something from her music class, a glittery lunchbox bouncing at her side, when we turned the corner and came face to face with a mound of tar-covered concrete jutting 6 inches out of the pavement. It looked like a tumor in the middle of our street, shiny, crude, and jagged. "What is that?" I muttered. Lacey frowned. "That wasn't there yesterday." No, it wasn't. But today it was everywhere. They hadn't built just one. There were 3 of them now, right in the heart of Oak Ridge Lane. No sign, no paint, just black, raw bumps cutting across the road, like someone hacked up the street with a shovel and forgot to finish the job. And somehow, the worst part wasn't the bumps. It was the lawn chair set up beside them. In it sat Karen Dillard, our neighborhood's self-proclaimed HOA president, wearing a sun visor and a homemade vest that read, "Traffic Guardian" in crooked letters. She sipped lemonade from a mason jar like she'd just saved the town from a zombie apocalypse. "Afternoon," she chirped, waving like she hadn't just vandalized county property. I forced a smile. "What is this traffic calming devices?" she beamed. "We've been needing them for years." "Who approved this?" "The HOA. I sent out a vote. There's no HOA authority over public roadways." "Karen, these streets are maintained by the county." She leaned forward, lowering her voice like she was sharing a delicious secret. "Maybe you haven't heard, but we've gone private community association as of last month. These roads are under our care now." I blinked. "I work for the Oregon Department of Transportation. Karen, I'm the director of roadway safety. These roads are still public. And this," I said, pointing to the tar blobs, "is illegal." Her face twitched. "Well, we'll see what the sheriff thinks. You're not the only one with a title. Let me back up. My name is Jalen Miles, 39, single dad, and until recently, a pretty invisible neighbor. We moved to Whispering Pines 2 years ago after my wife's cancer diagnosis pushed us to downsize and find calmer roots. After she passed, Lacey and I stayed. This place, quiet, tree-lined, mostly retired couples and young families, seemed like a safe cocoon. And for a while it was, until Karen Dillard decided her new retirement project was urban traffic control. She wasn't elected. No one asked her to run anything, but she printed off a fake HOA charter, stapled it to every mailbox, and declared herself acting president. Then she formed a safety committee with herself as the only member. We all ignored it at first, thought it would blow over like her No Lawn Ornaments campaign last spring. But this time she acted. That night, 2 cars bottomed out on her new bumps. One SUV scraped so hard it ripped the splash guard loose. I helped the guy bolt it back with duct tape. He was furious. Said he'd call the city. Said he had half a mind to sue. The next morning, someone spray-painted "Who asked for this" on the middle bump. By noon, Karen covered it with a throw rug. By 2 p.m., a teenager on a bike flipped over the second bump and cracked his front rim. By 4 p.m., my patience snapped. I walked back to the first bump, crouched down, and took photos of the surface. Uneven, rough. The tar still smelled fresh. No permits, no signage, not even reflective paint. I took pictures from every angle. Then I pulled out my badge, Oregon DOT, Director of Roadway Safety, and called our enforcement liaison at the county office. Her name was Lexa Chen. She picked up on the first ring. "You're not going to believe what a fake HOA just built in front of my driveway." Lexa showed up the next morning with 2 county inspectors and a clipboard. By then, Karen had roped off the entire street like it was her personal runway. Folding chairs, orange cones. She handed out flyers to passersby titled, "Why Speed Bumps Save Lives, the HOA Solution." Lexa introduced herself. Karen tried to wave her off. "Sorry, county jurisdiction," Lexa said. "You've installed unauthorized traffic modifiers on a public roadway. This violates Code 4117B9. Karen scoffed. That's not real. I wrote it, I said, stepping beside Lexa. It's very real. Karen's face went white, but she wasn't done. She turned, looked right at the neighbors starting to gather at the edge of the street, and said, they're trying to take away your safety. Do you want speeding cars again? Do you want to bury a child because we didn't act along silence? Then Vince, our neighbor with a hybrid truck and a calm voice, stepped forward. My son's bike frame snapped because of your bump. He's okay, but it could have been worse. Another neighbor added, my car bottomed out. It'll cost me $600. Karen tried to speak, but the noise around her was rising. Lexa cleared her throat and spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. We're issuing a formal removal order. These bumps must be cleared within 72 hours, or the county will remove them at HOA expense. Karen stammered. We have no budget for that. Lexa raised an eyebrow. Then maybe you should have checked the law before pretending to be the government. Karen looked to me. I looked at the camera. Because I was already recording. Karen didn't remove the speed bumps. Not after 72 hours. Not after the written citation. Not even after the sheriff came by and gave her a verbal warning. She doubled down. On the morning the county was supposed to remove the bumps, Karen taped a sign to the first one that read, we will not be bullied. These bumps save lives. Fox Pines HOA Safety Committee. There was no Fox Pines HOA, but she had made one up. Again. This time with a digital seal, a phone number that led to her landline, and a fake website that redirected to an image of a bald eagle above the words, Community First. Law Second. It would have been laughable if it weren't so dangerous. That same morning, a delivery van took the second bump too fast and launched over it. The package guy ended up with a busted axle and a bloody lip. Karen didn't even flinch, said it was reckless driving. I made my second call to Lexa that afternoon. She'd already heard about the van. She sounded tired. I think she's got a reason she won't back down. I said, oh, she has a reason, Lexa replied. We just need to figure out what it is. That night, Marla, my neighbor 2 doors down, dropped by my porch. Retired librarian. Knows everyone. Knows everything. She's hiding something, Marla said. Besides her ego, no. Something real. My niece works in real estate. Said Karen's been quietly telling homebuyers the HOA is official, charging them extra for community upgrades. Guess what she listed? I looked up. Traffic calming infrastructure. I blinked. She's selling the bumps. Marla nodded. On paper. Yeah. Charging people a $1,500 buy-in fee. Called it a safety contribution. That's fraud. That's Karen. I pulled up the county records that night. Whispering Pines had no official HOA. Nothing on file. No formation vote. No registered bylaws. But Karen had registered a private LLC under the name Fox Pines Neighborhood Advancement Council. LLC created 2 months ago. In it, she was listed as president. Her niece was listed as treasurer. And it had one stated business purpose: to implement infrastructure, policy, and residential standards as agreed upon by private members of the Whispering Pines community. That wording meant to confuse, to blur the line between authority and illusion. But worse, Karen was using that LLC to collect funds. By the end of the week, I had 6 neighbors telling me she solicited them. Each one was given a mandatory donation request. Each had a breakdown of fake dues, including speed bump material cost $975. Safety enforcement uniforms, $200. Legal consulting pending county dispute, $1,500. All of it framed as required. All of it tied to an HOA that didn't exist. At that point, I knew she wasn't just stubborn. She was running a scheme. And those bumps, they weren't for safety. They were receipts. So I called in backup. My friend Derek worked at the Oregon Department of Consumer and Business Services. I asked if he could quietly investigate an unlicensed group collecting community fees under false pretenses. He said, sure. What's the name? I said. Fox Pines Neighborhood Advancement Council? He laughed. Sounds like someone watched too many city council meetings on YouTube. Then he got quiet. Wait, is that the one with the illegal speed bumps? Yeah. He whistled. We've had 2 complaints already. Didn't know it was part of a racket. It is. I can prove it. Get me a statement. We'll escalate. That night, I met with 4 neighbors in my garage. Marla, Vince, Teresa, and James, the delivery driver whose van got wrecked. We laid everything out, the fake LLC, the fund collection, the damage claims, the official survey maps showing the road as public domain. Then I said what nobody wanted to say. We're pressing charges. They all agreed. Karen had pushed too far, hurt too many people, lied too publicly. This wasn't about traffic anymore. It was about trust and how one person could twist it into profit. We didn't want to fight. We wanted our street back. But Karen made it clear she wouldn't stop until someone made her. So that's what we did. The petition was simple, but it hit hard. We, the undersigned residents of Whispering Pines, declare that there is no legally recognized HOA governing our roads. The installation of unauthorized speed bumps constitutes vandalism of county property. The solicitation of fees by the Fox Pines Neighborhood Advancement Council, LLC, is deceptive and fraudulent. In just 2 days, 48 households signed over 80% of our neighborhood. We submitted it to the County Department of Roads, the Department of Consumer and Business Services, DCBS, the County District Attorney's Office. And finally, we posted it publicly to the Whispering Pines Neighborhood Forum. Within hours, the thread exploded. Karen tried to defend herself, posted a long comment. This petition is a misrepresentation. The council was formed democratically and for your safety. All contributions have been voluntary. Traffic calming saves lives. Anyone opposing that opposes safety. Then came the replies. You never asked us. You told us. My son broke his wrist because of your bump. We called the county. They're investigating you now. Karen went silent after that, but the momentum was just beginning. 3 days later, the county sent a letter to every household, notice of violation, unauthorized modifications to public roadway. Speed bumps installed on Oak Ridge Lane are in violation of Section 417B9 and will be removed at county expense. An investigation into the source of these modifications is active. At the bottom, in bold, any further obstruction of this removal will result in misdemeanor charges. The removal was scheduled for Tuesday at 8:00 a.m. Karen knew. We all did. But what she didn't know was that Lexa, my friend from DOT, and a local news team were coming too. Tuesday arrived like thunder. A county crew trucked in 2 jackhammers and a flatbed with a scoop loader. Deputies stood by in cruisers, lights flashing low but steady. I stood at the corner with Marla and Lacey. Karen emerged from her home at exactly 7:57 a.m., visor on, clipboard in hand. She marched right up to the first crew member and said, I demand to see your supervisor. That's when Lexa stepped forward, badge on her jacket. Hi, Karen, she said, smiling just enough. I'm the supervisor. Karen blinked. These bumps were not permitted. They are being removed. Any attempt to interfere will be documented. Karen opened her mouth to protest, but that's when the news van pulled in. A reporter jumped out with a mic. The camera started rolling. Miss Dillard, are you responsible for the installation of these speed bumps? Karen backed up. No comment. But the LLC is registered in your name. I said no comment. The sound of jackhammers filled the air. Crack. Grind. Split. The first bump came apart like cake under a blade. Tar dust floated into the breeze. Karen stood frozen. The footage aired on local TV that night under the headline, Fake HOA Installs Illegal Speed Bumps. County steps in. It went viral, and within 24 hours, Karen's LLC website went down. By the weekend, a formal fraud investigation was opened by the state, but the biggest victory was what came next. The neighbors held a community meeting on Friday, our first real one in years. No pretense, no power grabs. Just folding chairs in Teresa's driveway, cookies on a tray, and kids drawing chalk outlines on the now smooth street. We talked about real safety solutions with actual permits, forming a voluntary block watch, hosting a summer picnic, and rebuilding trust. Someone nominated me to help lead it. I said yes, but only if we never used the word president. Karen hasn't been seen much since. Her house is quiet now. A for sale by owner sign appeared 2 weeks later. She never apologized. But then again, we never needed her to. What we needed, what we earned, was our voice back. By the time Karen's Fox Pines Neighborhood Advancement Council, LLC, was officially shut down by the state, the damage had already outgrown our quiet corner of Whispering Pines. Because this wasn't just a story about speed bumps anymore. It was about power, ego, and how a lie, if printed on the right kind of paper, can look a whole lot like authority. It began with a call from Derek. "Jalen," he said, "the state's moving forward with fraud charges." 3 residents filed separate complaints against Karen, each claiming they paid her over $1,000 in HOA fees. She told them it was mandatory. I said, she told them a lot of things. But here's the kicker: those fees were funneled directly into a private bank account under her name. Not the LLC, not a shared fund. Personal checking. That was the final nail. Also, he added, "Your footage from the removal, it's now being used in training seminars." I blinked. Wait, what? For public servants? You exposed a textbook case of fake governance and misappropriation. They're calling it the speed bump scam. You're basically a case study now. I didn't know whether to be flattered or furious, so I went outside and looked at the smooth stretch of pavement where the speed bumps had once sat like sentries. The black scars were still faintly visible, but fading. Time, asphalt, and sunlight were healing what Karen had tried to carve into control. And still, I couldn't shake the feeling there was more to unravel, so I started digging again. Not into dirt this time, but records. Public complaints, zoning conflicts, road project opposition history. And there it was. Karen Dillard had done this before. Twice. Once in Sacramento in 2016, once in northern Idaho in 2019. In both cases, she had formed unofficial neighborhood safety groups, collected funds, installed unauthorized signs or structures, and eventually left town after being confronted by local officials. No jail time, no lasting record, but the same pattern, same charm, same fake authority, same paper trail. She wasn't just a power-hungry retiree. She was a pattern. So I made a choice. I wrote about it. A full op-ed for the Oregon Policy Journal, titled "When Fake Power Becomes Real Harm: The Karen Dillard Problem." In it, I didn't just tell my story. I outlined the broader issue, the growing trend of rogue HOAs and unregulated committees, the gap between local law and residential enforcement, the real-world consequences of unchecked power, and the need for clearer protections for homeowners against false authority. I ended the piece with one sentence: if silence is the speed bump, then truth is the one who drives through it. It got published, then syndicated within weeks. I was invited to speak at the Regional Roadway Governance Conference. Never thought a man whose daughter tripped on a rogue speed bump would become a public voice on anti-fraud street policy. But here we are. And back in Whispering Pines, we moved forward. The summer picnic happened. Kids played in inflatable pools. A neighbor built a little free library on the sidewalk. The chalk outlines on the street turned into murals. And the biggest surprise, we voted officially to form a neighborhood association. Not an HOA, no fines, no bylaws that no one read. Just us, a contact tree, an email list, a shared garden. Democracy in its purest form, porch by porch, name by name. Karen wasn't there, of course. Her house sold fast. All cash. No HOA disclosure. But here's what surprised me most. The new couple that moved in, they're in their 30s, expecting their first kid, and they asked, carefully, "Hey, what's the story behind that dip in the street?" I smiled and said, that's a scar, but it healed. It's easy to mistake control for order. That's what Karen did. And truthfully, that's what a lot of us do without realizing it. We crave peace, stability, rules that make sense. But when one person decides they know what's best for everyone, even a street can turn into a battlefield. I stood outside with Lacey the night before school started again. She'd grown a lot in the past few months. Taller, quieter, more observant. She looked down the street and said, "Do you think she knew it was wrong, Karen?" She nodded. "Yeah," I said. "I think she knew. I just don't think she cared." She tilted her head. Why I took a breath? Because some people think rules are tools and others think they're weapons. Karen picked the wrong one. In the weeks following her move out, the state wrapped up its investigation. They confirmed fraud, but since most of the dues had already been returned after a very strong suggestion from the DA, they settled for restitution and a permanent ban from forming any community governance entity in the state. No jail time, no court trial, but she's flagged now. She won't get away with it again. Not here. Not anywhere in Oregon. At the next block meeting, we reviewed actual road safety concerns with county guidance this time. We discussed putting in reflective yield signs, not bumps, proper signage, neighborhood education. We voted to fund the updates with voluntary donations, and nearly everyone chipped in. We even invited a real traffic consultant to talk about speed awareness. She didn't wear a visor, and she didn't bring a clipboard with fake bylaws. She brought data. The Whispering Pines Association, we dropped the Neighborhood Advancement Council nonsense forever, hosted its first community celebration in October. Chili cook-off, pie contest, kids in costumes, no signs, no fences, just people, neighbors, together. One moment stands out. A woman visiting from 2 blocks over saw the new mural the kids had painted big block letters in chalk, "Safe doesn't mean silent." She asked me if it was part of a campaign. I said no, just something the kids came up with. But in truth, it said everything. Karen's story didn't end with fire and fury. It ended with her silence and our refusal to accept it. Her vision of safety came from fear. Ours came from each other. Because streets, like communities, don't need dictators. They need defenders. And sometimes all it takes is one illegally poured pile of asphalt to wake up the whole block. Final reflection and call to action. What would you have done? Was Karen simply trying to help in the wrong way? Or was her power grab too dangerous to ignore? Where do we draw the line between order and overreach? And more importantly, who gets to draw that line in your community? Share your thoughts below. Let's talk about boundaries, justice, and how we protect each other without crossing the line.